IDF says it cannot confirm reports claiming Israeli warplanes attacked Syrian army and Hezbollah bases on the Syria-Lebanon border. Turkey condemns Russian President Putin over his remarks during a ceremony in Yerevan, Armenia, commemorating the Armenian massacre. And New Zealand and Australia mark 100 years since the landing at Gallipoli with unprecedented attendance. Good morning, you're watching I-24 News. I'm Marav Severe. We begin with breaking news. A powerful 7.7 magnitude earthquake hit Nepal just 50 miles from the capital Kathmandu, with witnesses saying buildings collapsed in the city and tremors could be felt as far away as New Delhi, India. We will keep you updated as this story develops. We now continue to our top story at this hour. Arab media and Syrian social media report that Israeli warplanes struck Syrian army and Hezbollah targets in Syria overnight. According to these reports, the strikes on Al-Kalkum on the Syrian-Lebanese border targeted the 155th and 65th brigades of the Syrian army, who specifically deal with strategic weapons and long-range Scud missiles. Now, IDF says it cannot confirm these reports. Further reports from Al Arabiya say Israel attacked on Wednesday as well, targeting 2 weapon convoys and killing 1 person. And we're now joined by senior military analyst for Israeli website Walla News, Avi Saschalov. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Good morning, Middle East analyst. Yeah.
I apologize for that. Well, Avi, the IDF says it cannot confirm these reports, but what do we know about what happened overnight?
We don't know much, I must say, except for what you said and mentioned. We only have the reports from Al Jazeera, from Al Arabiya, that mentioned a few attacks, actually few bombings that took place on Wednesday and then on Friday on Kalamoun area, the border area, which all the passages between Lebanon and Syria exist, or not all, but most of them, that the ones that Hezbollah is using in order to facilitate, in order to allow itself to transfer more and more rockets and weaponry into Lebanon. So we can only guess that what happened there in the last couple of days is another attempt by the Israeli Air Force to stop those convoys, to stop the attempts made by Hezbollah to pass from Syria into Lebanon strategic weaponry that might change the face of the battle or the confrontation between Israel and Hezbollah in the future.
Avi Saschalov, thank you for joining us on these alleged attacks by the Israeli Air Force. Meanwhile, overnight, Israeli troops shot and killed a young Palestinian man wielding 2 knives after he tried to attack troops near a checkpoint on the outskirts of East Jerusalem. The incident took place shortly after midnight, and a police spokeswoman said the border police fired warning shots before firing quote-unquote precise shots to neutralize him when he failed to adhere to their warnings. Medics confirmed he died of his injuries, and the man's cousin said he was killed for no reason.
He arrived at Azaim checkpoint when the soldiers shot him for no reason, without him attacking them. Witnesses told us that they saw them shooting him and executing him.
And the world marked 100 years since the massacre of 1.5 million Armenian people by Ottoman Turks. In Paris, demonstrators marched to the Turkish embassy demanding the killings be recognized as genocide. And French Prime Minister Manuel Valls and Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo joined thousands of protesters for a ceremony commemorating the mass killings, both also calling for wide recognition of the Armenian killings as genocide. The issue continues to be one of contention between Armenians and Turkey, who refuses to recognize the event as a genocide, and Russian President Vladimir Putin was condemned by Ankara for saying there is no justification for any mass killings. Turkey said with Russia's mass killings and exiles, Putin should know exactly what a genocide is and quote-unquote what its legal dimensions are. Here are Putin's statements.
Russia has always considered that there cannot be any justification for mass murder of people. The world community must do everything so that the tragic events of the past are never repeated, so that all nations can live in peace, not knowing the horrors of religious enmity, aggressive nationalism, and xenophobia.
And crowds gathered to commemorate the 100 years since the massacre in the United States as well, with thousands in Los Angeles taking to the streets and marching to the Turkish consulate. LA is home to the largest Armenian American population, with some 25,000 people. ABC News has more on a similar protest in Chicago.
What began on this day in 1915 is still fresh, half a world away and a century removed.
100 years we've been fighting for our cause, for the Turkish government to accept the genocide, and they have been denying ever since.
Anna Chalakian holds a picture of her grandfather who survived the mass killings of Armenians in the Ottoman Empire, now modern-day Turkey. Today, before a sizable crowd at Daley Plaza, political voices said the time has come to be honest with history.
Where we acknowledge once and for all that this was a genocide, that had the lives of 1.5 million Armenians and many other innocent people.
While other Western nations have used the word genocide, the U.S. has not. Turkey, our ally in the world's most troubled region, has warned if there's a change, there would be consequences.
It's mind-boggling to me that a foreign country would make those threats to the United States of America.
1915, never again!
As they have done in the past on this anniversary date, those of Armenian and Assyrian descent marched to the Turkish consulate, where they stood behind fences and traded words with those who don't believe them, waving Turkish flags a shouting distance away behind fences of their own.
Open your archives! Open your archives!
1915, never again!
Historians need to decide, not politicians. People screaming each other back and forth is stupid.
The deaths of 100 years ago occurred in the clouds of widespread war and were not sanctioned by government, their argument is. Anna Chalakian will never accept that.
We're just looking to have the recognition that this really happened.
And Australians and New Zealanders flocked to the Hellfire Pass Memorial Site in Kanchanaburi, some 120 kilometers northwest of Bangkok today, for a dawn service to remember those who sacrificed their lives in World War I Battle of Gallipoli, as well as those who served during World I and World War II. I-24 News reporter Danny Swibel has the story.
This year commemorates the 100th anniversary of the doomed World War I campaign at Gallipoli in Turkey. The battle was one of the bloodiest of the Great War, as thousands of soldiers from the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps were cut down by machine gun and artillery fire as they struggled ashore on a narrow beach. The fighting would eventually claim more than 130,000 lives, 87,000 of them on the Ottoman side, before the Turks finally repulsed the poorly planned Allied campaign.
Time and perspective of history have cast the Gallipoli campaign and some of the military decisions that were made in a different light.
The first Anzacs were tradesmen, clerks, labourers, farmers and professionals, but ordinary men did extraordinary things. They lived with death and dined with disease because that was where their duty lay.
On Friday, Turkey hosted the New Zealand and Australian premiers, as well as the heir to the British throne, Prince Charles, and his son, Prince Harry, to honor the tens of thousands that were killed at Gallipoli in one of the most futile yet emblematic campaigns of the conflict.
We must remember the heroism and humanity of those on both sides who had to leave behind their families from cities, villages, and farms around the world to come here and confront the horrors that they did.
Our communal suffering should not bring back new animosity, but should instead bring new friendship, affection, and peace. I hope that Gallipoli will remain an example for the world and all people.
Despite the overwhelming amount of blood spilled there, the Battle of Gallipoli achieved little, but ended up playing a crucial role in forming the national consciousness, both of modern Turkey and the young nations of Australia and New Zealand. While Turkey has boasted that about 24 heads of state are attending, several key leaders are instead at the Armenia commemorations, where 1.5 million Armenians were killed in a campaign amounting to many as genocide by Ottoman authorities during World War I.
And U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is in Canada for the biennial Arctic Council ministerial meeting to discuss issues surrounding climate change, a topic that was a top priority for him in his 2-year term as chairman. Among those at the meeting are other nations of the 8 considered Arctic countries, including Russia. Despite ongoing tensions between the U.S. and Russia, the two vowed to cooperate on preventing oil spills near the North Pole and to combat climate change in a region that is warming faster than any other. Well, that's all for us at this hour. I'm Marav Savir. Thank you for watching.